Hey there, inspired by the month of February, which contains Valentine's Day on February 14th, we're going to create an artwork today of a perfectly symmetrical heart. Both sides will be exactly the same. I'm going to show you a neat trick to capture that and figure out how to get both sides to be exactly the same. And then in all of these boxes that we create on our heart, we're going to explore patterns today. And I've got a really great handout for that. And we're going to take a look at all these little patterns and designs that fill and cover a space with repetition. And we are going to fill each of those boxes with a different pattern. Let's start though with our paper, blank paper. I'm going to set aside mine. And today I'm looking at my paper the wide way, and I need to fold in half like a book. So I'm going to line up my edges, neatly crease at the back. I'm going to make that a hard crease by rubbing over the fold a couple times. And when I open, I've got a nice fold. Now, I've got my pencil in my hand. At the top, I'm coming down a little ways for the center of the heart. And when I do this line, it goes up, out, around, then straight down to the bottom. Watch me do it first. That might help you with yours. So I'm coming down from the top a little ways. My line goes up at first, curves out, around, then it starts heading straight to this bottom of the middle. When you have that line done, we're going to carefully go over it one more time. We're making the line a little bit darker. Do you see how mine is dark? Now, when I fold the paper in half, I'm going to use my fingertip to rub on top of where my line was. I don't need to rub in the middle here. That's not where my pencil line was. So I'm trying to rub on top of where my line is. Another neat trick, if you have something handy like, so I've got a Sharpie marker here. See how the back of the marker is rounded? That's another neat way to rub, but a lot of things won't work for that. But the back of a Sharpie does. Either way, if you have none of those things, you can use your fingertip. So I'm rubbing on top of where my line is. I can actually still, I know you can't see it in the video, but I can see my line coming through the paper there. And when you open after spending a good bit of time rubbing, you won't see a perfect copy of the other side, but I know in the video here, you can see that mine did show up light enough for me to see it. And now I can copy the other side. Symmetry is a concept where both sides of a shape or item are exactly the same. That was a way for us to capture and copy that's one half, so the other side is perfectly the same. Now we're going to break our heart into sections. I'll show you mine that's done so you can see what we're up to. I'm going to start with the line down the middle. So let's carefully draw on the fold line just inside the heart. We don't have to do that space outside of the heart. Now I'm looking at this side and I'm going to split this side in half. So where I think halfway through this side is, I'm going to draw a line. Other side, where is the middle? I'm going to draw a line straight down. Now, I think it's easier to draw straight lines when you're leading to your belly. So for these lines, I'm actually going to turn my heart on its side. Okay? Now, my first line is not going to go right at this point. It's going to go a little bit over here. So where the top of that is, I'm going to drag a line straight down to me. Again, I think this is an easier way to make straight lines, but if you can make them the other way, going side to side, that's fine with me too. Gonna come down a little ways here. Another line. And that leaves me a little space to do one more here at the bottom to give me 2 tiny boxes down here. Mine is done and just needs outlined. I've got a Sharpie marker here. If you don't have a Sharpie marker, but you've got crayons, or maybe you have a regular set of markers and there's a black marker in that set, whatever you need to use to outline is fine with me. But let's go over all of these lines before we start diving into patterns. Take your time, try to get right on top of these. If you miss, one of the nice things about outlining with a marker after you've done a drawing with pencil is if you miss the pencil line, you can always go back and erase, and no one will have ever known that you missed the line. So I'll show you that here in a second. Do you see how right here I missed my pencil line? If I take time to erase this, no one will ever know that I had missed that pencil line, because it's gone now. Same here, here, and over here. I'm going to probably pause the video now so that you can take time to catch up, but I am going to let you look for a moment at these pattern handouts. So patterns have repetition and they fill a space. So let's look at some of the things that are happening here. This is an interesting, I think this is upside down. Let me flip it around. This is an interesting one happening here with zigzag lines with dots at the edge of each zigzag. So does it repeat? Sure does. Does it cover a space? Absolutely. This one is called eyeballs and it looks like eyeballs to me. Here's flowers that are repeating. It's the same flower. It covers a space. Let me see what else is catching my eye here. Oh, this is an interesting one with the circles and then the little lines that are connecting to the other circles. Here is squiggly lines with some squares in between. And if I jump over to this side, here's bricks. We've all seen bricks before. The school is made of bricks. Perhaps your house is too. Here is one with diamonds that are repeating. That one would actually be pretty easy for us to do. Let's look at some others. Here are some bumpy lines. They're calling them scales, kind of like the scales of a fish, and they all fit together. They repeat to fill a space. So we've got some ideas. Let's start with some of those in our heart shape. So I've got my pencil again. I'm going to do bricks in one of the first ones here. So I'm going to do some lines crossing to fill this first space, and then lines down, but my next row goes in between. That's how bricks are organized. Next ones below that are in between the bricks. If you're ever drawing a house and you want to get this part just right, that's one thing you'll want to notice and take care of. I'm now going to try those wavy lines with the, let me show you which one I'm going to do here. I'm going to try the wavy lines with the squares in between them. So that was like this. And in between was a row of boxes. Is it repeating? You bet. Is it filling a space? You bet. I always tell students, when you think of a pattern, it doesn't have to just be, in the classroom we teach you that maybe numbers and shapes can repeat, but think of fabric on your couch or sometimes in your clothing. You have all sorts of wild designs that repeat. In my house at home, I've got some of those things happening on my couch or my curtains. Those are also places where you might find patterns. Let's look at another one here. Let's try the flower power one. Looks like the center of that flower is actually a spiral. As long as we repeat it and it covers the space, it will be a pattern. So spiral in the middle there, petals coming out. Spiral in the middle, petals coming out. So we're taking our time here, inventing some patterns. Each section of our heart gets a different one. I'm going to do many of these with you, but please, if you can think of a pattern or maybe go find one in your space or out in your house, that would be great too. Let's try, before we give up on this one, oh, look at this one. This is rectangles connecting with dots between. Let's try that guy. So I'm going to do rectangles in lines. See how I've organized them in rows? And then in this one, it looked like they were all connected with lines, and on the lines were circles. As long as the design repeats, it's a pattern. So on the lines, then, I'm coming back with a circle. I'm going to keep my next one rather simple. I'm going to have my next one be just wave lines that are repeating. So it's sort of like a backwards, upside down bump line. If I repeat it and it fills the space, is it a pattern? You bet. Good. You can try to keep one more simple. Maybe this one will be zigzag lines with every other one filled in. Watch this. So every other one, I'm going to fill in with these crossing lines. So I'll fill in that one, skip a space. Fill in the next one, skip a space. I know we talked about the scales, the one that's full of scales. Let me try that one. So that one was a bunch of bump lines. And then from the top of the bump, I go back to do the next row. Do you see how they're touching the top of the bump? Keep that in mind as you continue this pattern. Touching the tops of the bumps for the next row. Oh, it does really start to look like dragon scales or fish scales, doesn't it? I think they were right. All right, I'll do one more with you, and then I'm going to ask that you do some on your own for the last one. I'm going to pick the diamonds for my last one. The diamonds are here. Let's try that one. That one might be easy to do with some diagonal lines that are evenly spaced. So I'm trying to space them out evenly. Then I come back and cross this way. Also evenly spaced. See how they create little diamonds in there? This one feels pretty easy. So I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 patterns with you. I'm going to ask you to look around or just use the creative brain on top of your shoulders to invent some additional patterns. I'll give you an extra second to look at some of the ideas here. There are so many here. This is actually a double-sided page, this one is. So lots of options here. This one's interesting. Look at the fan shapes. It kind of reminds me of the scales that we tried. What else is catching my eye here? Oh, this is interesting. The diamonds within the circle. So these are diamond shapes with a little dot, but they overlap and have a circle in them. Lots of different ideas here. So I'm going to set you free at this point. Coloring this artwork is entirely up to you. So each of your little patterns can be a different shape. If you'd like to have the background done as well, that would be fine. This could be a great little gift for somebody that you care about in the month of February that contains Valentine's Day coming up on February 14th. Have fun.